Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the final broadcast episode of the week of the Final Word with MattyB here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network with your boy MattyB on the call. And boom, here we are. Made it through another week, another brilliant Philadelphia sports week in the dead of winter. Again, I don't know where you are in the world, but where I am, it is extremely cold, extremely dark, and extremely snowy and extremely depressing. So I hope where you are is a lot better than where I am. But I'm glad we're here and I'm here with you. We're going to take it home, take it out in style on the final night of our broadcast week. Lot to get into. Again, earlier today on the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn, we broke down what we expected from the Eagles-Packer game on Sunday. I will go over that again a little bit later on in the show. I do believe this is going to be a close game. I believe it's going to be a back and forth type of affair. I do also believe that the Packers will find a way to beat the Eagles. I just have no faith in what the Eagles do. I'm sorry. That's just the way I feel. And, but again, I could definitely see the Eagles winning this game. I would not be surprised if the Eagles won this game. Not at all. But I also would not be surprised if they lost. So we'll get into that a little bit later on in the program. We got your day in Philadelphia sports history. We also have, we're not going to do hot stoves tonight, but we are going to do a new segment on the program. Kind of inspired by the hot stove, inspired by the Phillies, inspired by the Phillies' lack of success over the last few years. So we got a new segment to debut in the program. We got our card review. We got our of the night segment, and we're also going to do. Also, we got Penn State Notre Dame ongoing as we speak. 3-0 Nittany Lions early second quarter as James Franklin tries to redeem himself when it comes to the big games. So yeah, we're going to try to get into a lot of different things. And also, I do want to talk about the Flyers. We have Flyers action ongoing as well. 3-0. Flyers are trailing, getting into the back end of the second period right now to the Dallas Stars. But I do want to talk about the Flyers, again, inspired a little bit by last night's show, because I know people's patience are running thin, and I want to get into this a little bit more about the rebuild and about what this team is dealing with currently right now. So we got a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff to get into, and let's not waste any more time, shall we? Let's do our day in Philadelphia sports history. We go back to the year 1991. On this night in 91, Michael Jordan scored 40 points in a 107-99 win over the Sixers at the Spectrum. In doing so, Jordan reached the 15,000 point mark in his 460th game. Jordan was the second fastest player to reach that mark. Wilt Chamberlain did it in 3:58. Now, not to be confused with the youngest LeBron James, then of the Cavaliers, he holds the record, scoring his 15,000th NBA point in 540 games before his 26th birthday. So on this night, Michael Jordan became the second fastest player in NBA history to reach 15,000 points, and he did it against the Sixers in a win back in 1991. And yes, in my opinion, the greatest basketball player to ever strap on a pair of sneakers is that of his airness, Michael Jordan. I honestly believe when you look at GOATs and when you try to assess who's a GOAT and who's not a GOAT, I think the best formula is to take that player in the prime of their career and say, hey, would they dominate in any era of the sport that they play in? And if I do that to Michael Jordan, if I take prime Michael Jordan, mid-'80s or late 80s into like late 90s, if I take that Michael Jordan and I put him in any basketball era of history, he would still dominate. And I fully believe that, to include this era of basketball. And that's how I assess the fact that he would definitely be the GOAT. So on this night back in 91, Jordan became the second fastest player ever to 15,000 points. So congratulations, Michael Jordan. I'm doing it against the Sixers on this night. Joe checking in would say, hey, how are you? Love the show. Joe, I'm doing fabulous. I've never had a bad day in my life. And thank you for checking in. And thank you for your comment there about the show. I appreciate it. We're trying hard. And with Joe, I'll use that as a segue. I'll remind everybody that everything on this program tonight and everything on this network is brought to you by the great hardworking people of the It's a Wrap Sports Network, and we cannot do it without you. Please drop us a like and subscribe on all of our social media platforms so that we may continue some of the riveting conversation that we've started and continue to bring that to you throughout the next X amount of years as we march headlong into the future. So earlier today, around 4 o'clock, if you missed it, if you did miss it, it's there on the YouTube and it's there on our social media. Please go back and watch it. Kyle Quinn showed up for his regular spot on the Birds Blast. Kyle Quinn, a weekly show that we do during the football season, and a show that me and Kyle have been doing for the past 5 years. Matter of fact, with this show or with the regular season wrapping, it was our 5th year of doing some sort of pregame. We called it a bunch of different things over the years. And also it was on different platforms throughout the years. But still, we've been getting together ever since the 2020 season and doing this. And we wrapped up yet another regular season this week. But me and Kyle spent a good amount of time cutting up this Eagle-Packer game. And yes, I am not going to sit here and tell you that I'm not taking my typical Negadelphian role by saying, you know what, there's no way in hell that the Eagles can win this game. I'm not saying that. The Eagles are, on paper, a better team than the Green Bay Packers. Absolutely 100%. I'm not going to sit here and dispute that. I think they got more talent on all kinds of different positions. But I also believe there are some problems with this football team that have not been addressed throughout the season. And a 14-3 record will kind of hide some of those problems, but they're still there. And I'm waiting for these problems to cost them in the worst way. And week after week after week, I've waited for these problems to correct themselves, and they haven't corrected themselves. So as we move into the playoffs, I'm concerned about a few different areas of the football team. The first area I am concerned about is the slow starts. This has been a problem with this team all year long. I don't think the slow starts are going to rectify themselves here in the wild card game. Now, the Eagles have been lucky. Let's face it. They've been lucky because they played inferior competition all season long to endure those slow starts. I got to sit here and defend myself for speaking reality and truth. The Eagles, if you look at all the Eagles' opponents in 2024 and you add up their cumulative records, they're like 20 games under 500. The Eagles have not played a tough schedule this year. They have not. And that's not me trying to tell you or sell you a bag of goods. I am not a radical left homer. I am not trying to sell you propaganda. It's the truth. Go back and look at the numbers. And the Eagles have not played well to start games all season long. And they've been lucky that their defense has held them in. They've been lucky that the competition that they faced couldn't capitalize on it. And they were lucky getting into halftime. Again, a team that's averaged 12 points. The Eagles have averaged 12 points in first half action throughout the season. 12 points. That's not a Super Bowl team's resume. It's not. That's a problem. And it hasn't fixed itself. There's been some signs of trending in the right direction over the last few weeks. I'll give you that. But they've not gotten off to good starts. And they've been bailed out by their defense. And they've also been bailed out by their competition. And then what happens in the second half is they take over games, and so does Saquon Barkley, who's had an amazing season, and they were able to run themselves to victory. At some point, you got to think that's going to have to change. Now, I'm not saying it's against Green Bay because I'm not a big fan of the Packers. I would take a guess that if you look at all the teams in the playoffs right now, both AFC and NFC, the Packers are probably one of the bottom 3. Let's face it, right? In my opinion. So I'm not saying that they're going to pay the Bulldog this week, but I'm just saying that it's there. It's still lurking out there. And then you factor in your quarterback who's coming back after not playing for 3.5 weeks. We don't know the severity of that injury. We don't know if there's really any lingering effects of that injury. Do we expect Jalen Hurts to come back onto the field and be something he's not been all year long? The radical left homers will try to tell you that Jalen Hurts has had an elite season. Show me where that's been. Show me where Jalen Hurts has had an elite season, because I want to know. I've been trying to find it all year myself. Where has Jalen Hurts had an elite season? He gets paid $1.6 million a game to have a very pedestrian game manager type season. I've been throwing up some clips and some stats lately, and they've been astonishing in terms of what these stats say about Jalen Hurts as a player. Here's one of them. Jalen Hurts has attempted 361 passes in 2024. Only 48 have been to the middle of the field. Are you kidding me? 7% of the Eagle passing attack is run through the middle of the field. They've been living on the edges. They've been living down the field. They've been living with the 50-50 balls. And it's been working. I'm not saying it's not working, but they are one layered when it comes to the aerial passing attack. They won't let Jalen Hurts throw the ball to the middle of the field. Why? Well, why is because of this thing right here. This is Jalen Hurts' numbers in week 1 against the Packers. 20 of 34 for 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a fumble, and a fumble lost. Right? The first 4 weeks of the season, this was pretty much Jalen Hurts week after week after week. They don't trust Jalen Hurts to throw the ball to the middle of the field because they don't believe in his ability as a timing type quarterback. And they want to mitigate the turnovers. Everyone's lauding Jalen Hurts for cleaning up the turnovers. Everyone's lauding the Eagles for cleaning up Jalen Hurts' turnovers. But all they've done is turn the offense off. All they've done is gone to a very conservative style of offense that runs through Saquon Barkley's feet. And that's why they didn't let him play in that last game, because he's way too important to this team to lose. So all I'm just trying to tell you is that, first of all, Jalen Hurts has not had an elite season. He's not an elite quarterback. And I made a statement a few weeks ago, and I'll stand by this statement. I think he's an average to an above average quarterback. I think he's a starter in the NFL. I do, but I don't think he's a winner, and I don't think he's a champion, and I think he's a quitter based on what happened in Alabama. I mean, that's just my opinion. He's a fair quarterback. I mean, he belongs as a starting quarterback in this league, but he is no way an elite quarterback. Elite quarterbacks don't only throw 48 passes in the middle of the field. And don't try to propaganda me about, well, they didn't have to because of Saquon. That's not true. You know that's not true. They were doing it in the beginning of the season, but it wasn't working. Jalen Hurts was turning the ball over too much. So they stopped doing it. They took it away from him. And they've been relying on Saquon Barkley, and they've been relying on the down the field, down the sideline passing attack. So that's one of the areas, the slow starts. I kind of started winding off into Jalen Hurts land, but the slow starts of this football team offensively are going to come back and bite them on the ass at some point this season. They cannot continue to live on the edge like this all year long and expect to win a Super Bowl. If it doesn't come back and bite them next week or this week, maybe it bites them next week. Maybe it bites them in the Super Bowl. But at some point, these slow starts are going to get them. And I was like a lot of other Eagle fans holding out for them to figure out the offense in the first quarter. It never really came, never really happened. So that's still a problem. The other area is the quarterback. Jalen Hurts, who, in my opinion, has not had a good season to begin with. Now you're going to throw him in there ice cold into a playoff game, not having taken a snap in 3.5 weeks. And how much residual effect of that concussion is he still suffering from? I get it. He's going to pass the protocol, and they're very strict about that, and I understand that. But how much has that concussion affected him? We won't be able to tell that until game time. We won't be able to tell that until he gets onto the field. But 3.5 weeks of not taking a snap, 3.5 weeks of not being in a competitive football game, what kind of effect is that going to have on Jalen Hurts' game on Sunday? And obviously, that's not the best thing to do, is to go into a playoff game with your starting quarterback who hasn't played in close to a month. But the Eagles have no choice. That's the second thing that concerns me about Sunday's game. The third thing, no one's talking about it. Well, we talk about it a little bit. Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott is the third thing that concerns me about Sunday. The faith and the confidence in the kicker are gone. And for good reason. Did the Eagles address that? They said that we have faith. We trust them. We have confidence in them. So there's been no changes at kicker. And now we're going into the playoffs with Jake Elliott on a week-to-week season as our kicker. Raise your hand if you have concerns with that. Raise your hands if in a moment where we need a tie or we need the win, you have confidence in Jake Elliott anywhere beyond 40 yards. Or hell, maybe even 33 yards. He was having problems today in practice kicking 30-yard field goals. There's a problem with the kicker that has not been addressed. And if the problem with the kicker does come back to haunt them, and that is the reason why we get eliminated, the first question to your elite head coach is going to be, why wasn't there a change made at the kicker position? Because it's not like this started today. This has been a problem for a month now, or pretty much the entire season. But it hasn't been addressed. Now it's too late. Now you're going into the playoffs with Jake Elliott. Does he conjure his past playoff kicking brilliance in the Super Bowl, the double doink game, or didn't he hit one like in that game that just barely got in? At what point, though, are we concerned with Jake Elliott? So those are my three main concerns heading into this game. The slow starts, the quarterback, and the kicker. They might not seem earth-moving to you, but it's the playoffs where every play is magnified. Everything is magnified. Now, the Eagle defense is a strong asset to this team, and they're going to have to deploy it to every inch of its ability. They got to be aggressive. They have started to get the football turned over the last, say, 5 or 6 games. What are they going into this game now? They've turned the ball over, or they've committed, or they've created 10 turnovers over the last 3 games. That needs to continue into Sunday. They need to continue to be a ball hawking type of defense, because I'm telling you, they're going to have to create some of their own offense, I think. Jordan Love is dinged up. Take advantage of that. Put the pressure on him. He's missing his number one down the field target in Christian Watson. Take advantage of that. Clog the middle of the field. I said it in the show with Kyle, Zach Bond and the Kobe Dean, who's dinged up as well, I think they're going to play a very pivotal part in Sunday's game in the mid-range passing game. Because I think they're going to try to exploit, the Packers will try to exploit the middle of that field with the lack of down the field targets. So are they up to the task? Is Nakobe Dean up to the task? Jalen Carter is going to get his. You got to unleash him. But is Jordan Davis going to get his? Said it again on the show earlier. Where is Jordan Davis at? If there's a game for Jordan Davis to come out of the shadows and to earn that first-round draft pick status, it would be Sunday. Take some of the pressure off of Jalen Carter. The pressure is on Carter every snap. He's double-teamed, triple-teamed. Somebody's got one-on-one coverage. Why isn't Jordan Davis able to get through? I know he's a run stopper, and I'm not expecting much out of him from terms of pass rush, but he gives you nothing in that category. Jordan Davis needs to step it up. Help out Jalen Carter. Help out the defense. Amp the defense up by being another threat that someone has to contend with. So you were going into this game, and some of the things earlier in the week about the Eagles fans, about some of the overhype or the complete disrespect of the Packers. Listen, I get it, man. The Packers don't scare me either, but you guys or some of them are talking like the Packers are like a 3-win team. The Packers are 11-6 in a very highly competitive NFC North. So I'm not saying that they're better than the Eagles. I'm not. The Eagles are a better team. They are. But the Eagles are not a perfect team. And that 14-3 record, a lot like last year when I got crucified for saying that they were a phony 10-1. If you rewind the tape, I was the only one standing on that island saying 10-1, it don't mean anything. It ain't real. I have a feeling that 14-3 ain't real either. I do. So again, I'm not saying the Eagles are not going to win. They probably will. I don't think they will, but they probably will. Talent might rise to the top. We're running out of that time too, because the playoffs are going to start getting really, really hairy. But I would not be surprised if they won. I also would not be surprised if they lost. So on Sunday, 4:25, Eagles-Packers. Are you feeling confident that the Eagles will win? Do you feel that the Eagles, and don't give me your radical left homer answer. Give me your intelligent Eagle fan answer, right? Give me that answer. That's what I want to hear. Joe says he thinks the Eagles will win by 10. Okay, I can see that. My concern is Jake Elliott. There you go, Joe. That was one of mine as well. What was it today? He was missing field goals at 33, made one at 37, missed one at 33. He's all over the place. It's going to be cold, but it's not going to be like, I think there's no real like massive weather issues on Sunday. It's supposed to be sunny, but it's going to be cold. Is Jake Elliott, is he going to step into the limelight or the spotlight, and is he going to come up small or big? That's a great question, and maybe not Sunday, but as we go deeper into the playoffs, if the Eagles are able to do that, how confident are you that Jake Elliott can carry them through there? Because at some point, I would imagine Jake Elliott's number is going to get called. Is he ready? As the other concern is pressure on the young cornerback and safety. Are you meaning Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean? You mean the Eagles' young cornerback and safety? And by the way, who sees Cooper DeJean next year as a cornerback? I mean, you got an issue, right? You got the Bradbury. James Bradbury's still on this team. Man, they really stashed him away. Got to give Howie a lot of credit for that, playing his shell game with James Bradbury all year. But Darius Slade, he can't be back next year, right? Do you move Cooper DeJean out of the nickelback, out of the safety spot, and put him as a cornerback opposite Quinyon next year, or do you keep him there and bring in a free agent to replace Darius Slade? The draft situation is going to be interesting for the Eagles too, because they may have another secondary problem they need to address. It's going to be very interesting. Joe's saying, yep. Yeah, so Joe, I guess you're saying that your concern is that the pressure on these two players might be too much. Listen, that's something too. I mean, it's the first time they've been into the playoffs. They're rookies. Everyone keeps forgetting that. And Quinyon Mitchell has been human over the last few games. He's been beat a couple times. And I remember weeks ago it was no one's even throwing his way. Well, they started to, and it's not really working out too well. But I think they'll be fine. And again, I don't care who you are back there, with maybe the exception of Ronnie Lott. You're only as good in the secondary as your front four is in terms of giving you pressure and pressure in the quarterback. If they let Jordan Love sit back there for 7 seconds unmolested, then I don't care who's in the secondary. They're going to get beat. It's a very symbolic or symbiotic relationship between the front four and the secondary. So we'll see. But you're right. There's some concern there. I mean, you also have Nakobe Dean really in his first major role in the playoffs. You have a lot of these players stepping into the limelight for the very first time and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting. It definitely will be very interesting to see. But Sunday, Eagles, Packers, 425. Playoff hockey has returned. I'm sorry, playoff football. I'm watching the Flyers game. It's painful, man. Wow. I don't know what the hell I just saw there. But anyway, we have playoff football is back, and I could not be more excited. Big weekend in football, and tonight it all started. Orange Bowl, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Joe Howe's got an update for all you Nittany Lion fans out there. Yes, Penn State is up by 10. I believe about midway through the second quarter, Joe? Is that about right? Because last time I saw it was 3-0 early in the second. Oh, at the end of the second. Wow. 10-0. Nittany Lions heading potentially into the half. How you feeling out there, Lion Nation? 1 half away from the national championship game. Could it be true? And could my dreams come true with Penn State going to the national championship? And could my dreams come true times 100? We get Ohio State in the national championship. Can God, do you hear me? Give me Penn State, Ohio State in the national championship game. Please. Would that not be must-watch TV? Must go to Happy Valley and watch the game with Penn State fans, or go to the national championship game? Where is the national championship game? Is it what bowl is it this year? But Penn State, Ohio State national championship game. Is anybody else feeling that vibe? Because boy, oh boy. And as I've been saying this since last week when they beat Boise, this is James Franklin's reclamation tour. If they can find a way to win tonight, they pick up the Orange Bowl trophy. Then they get an opportunity to go to the national championship game. What's the biggest knock on Franklin? There's two big knocks on Franklin. Can't win the big game, and he can't beat Ohio State. So they have an opportunity with a win tonight to win another big game, the third one in this run, get to the national championship game, and if God willing, we get Ohio State, there's an opportunity for him to win the biggest of the games and also a double hit, beat Ohio State. God, oh God, oh God. Give me some Penn State, Ohio State in the national championship game. I'll die a happy man if Penn State wins, of course. So, but 10-0 Penn State now, heading into a 2-minute warning-ish of the Orange Bowl. And the Eagles and Packers, 4:30 on Sunday. Again, earlier, if you didn't see the show, please check it out. Me and Kyle kind of cut up the Eagles and Packers game on the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn, and we also cut up some of this too. Here is your playoff bracket for the weekend. Very interesting games. The Vikings and Rams now, I guess, being moved to Arizona in light of the devastating fires in Southern California. Tampa and Washington, and over on the AFC, you got the Chargers and the Texans, the Steelers and the Ravens, Broncos and the Bills are your first round matchups. I told Kyle that the most intriguing game on this schedule for me this week, with of course the exception of the Eagles, is that Bronco and Bills game. I don't think the Broncos will win, but I do think Bo Nix really cements his place as an up-and-coming young star in this game. I think that the Broncos will lose, but it won't be any fault to their quarterback. I really don't. And I think you might look at this game, if the Broncos win, if they pull off the upset, it could be looked at in the AFC at least as a passing of the guard between Josh Allen and Bo Nix. Josh Allen needs to win this game. Josh Allen needs to win a goddamn Super Bowl to get the dogs off of his back. But I'm telling you, this is like one of those types of games, you know, the young rookie against the not so young rookie anymore. And Josh Allen. Josh Allen's career now is what, 7-8 years into the league, 6-7 years. So I'm really interested in all the storylines about that game, of course, in Buffalo. I think it's going to be a fun game. Again, I don't think Denver will win, but boy, would I not be surprised if they did, because I'm a big Bo Nix kind of guy. I think he's the real deal, and I want to see him succeed. Joe says he loves the Steelers and Ravens matchup. Yeah, NFC North. Anytime you get a divisional matchup, Joe, it does wonders for the soul. But I think Pittsburgh, with their loss, I don't think Pittsburgh wins that game, and I think obviously it concludes their collapse of 2024. Remember a long time ago they were a 10-3 team coming in against the Eagles, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is the test. This is the test they're waiting for." No, man, the Steelers stink. I knew watching that game, the Eagles handed them 2 turnovers on the Eagles side of the field in the first half, and the Steelers came away with that with 3 points. I knew right then and there the Steelers were a fraud. I honestly did. But yeah, that should be a good game too, because it's a divisional game. You can never really tell about those games. But there you have it, your first round of the NFL playoffs this weekend on Fox, CBS, and ABC, I guess. But there you are. All right. Eagles will lose 27-24. That's my prediction. Please don't hate me for it. I mean, I don't care if you do, but can't you see where I'm coming from? I just don't believe. I don't believe. I believe that the problems of this team have been masked. They haven't been fixed. And I think those problems are going to eventually come back and get them. I highlighted 3 areas that I think they're going to struggle with, and I think it's going to get them. It's going to get them. All right. And he's saying another matchup of Chargers and Texans. Yes, on Saturday, of course. Whenever the Chargers and Texans play in the playoffs, it always has to be on the Saturday game. But you're right, Joe. Another matchup indeed. All right, let's transition now because we got a lot to get into. And I'm up against the clock because I got to get off the air before the end of the Flyers game, which is in the second period intermission right now. But remember, after the Flyers game, get right back over here as we got you covered for Clear the Ice. Sal will have you tonight, and then I got you on Saturday for the debut of Cutter Gauthier at the Wells Fargo Center. That's right. The Flyers prima donna, former first-round draft pick, returning home to face the Flyers crowd. And we'll see how that works out for him. Obviously, as anticipated, I remember last year when the trade went down, I was actually I had that date circled on my calendar, or obviously when the schedule came out, I had the date circled in my calendar. And now it's finally here. But we'll see. We'll see how this thing works out for them as he will attempt. We'll see how it works out as they will try. Sorry about that. Trying to do like two different things right now as I'm trying to get a file loaded up. But Cutter Gauthier will return to Wells Fargo, or not return, but actually be at Wells Fargo. And there's a clip I want to show because I think this is very interesting. So I guess this was last night or Tuesday night, Flyers Maple Leafs at the Wells Fargo Center. I just want you to watch this. All right. See, that's to me, that's disgraceful. All right. So let's kind of set that up. There was a Toronto Maple Leaf father and his two kids. They were fans of the Maple Leafs. They were at the game on Tuesday night, and they were giving it to the Flyers fans. They just won. You know, you saw they was waving back at everybody. Listen, this is what this is about. It's good-natured ribbing. And this jackhole of a Flyer fan, who of course is representing the city, goes down and literally physically assaults this family. Now, is anybody going to stick up for this guy? Is anybody going to give me any kind of support for this type of individual? I hope the police have seen this, and I hope the manhunt is on for this guy because he needs to be arrested. That's totally unacceptable. The goddamn father was there with his kids watching a hockey game, and he gets physically assaulted by some idiot fan. Again, representing the Philadelphia Flyers. And you guys treat me like I'm the villain. I mean, but that's okay. Does anybody condone that? Does anybody actually support that type of behavior? Because that made me cringe when I saw that, honestly. And to those people out there, those Maple Leafs fans, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened to you. Please come back. And the Flyers should take care of that family too. But that was a goddamn disgrace. I know that the majority of people that I kind of go round and round with on a daily basis, it's sports, for God's sakes. We're not going after each other personally. We can see the bigger picture. But when something like that happens, when you step completely across the line and attack a family over a hockey game, I hope the full extent of the law, even in this liberal ass city of Philadelphia, is taken against this guy and he goes to prison because man, he's lucky it wasn't me. I would have thrown his head through the damn glass. All right. Especially if I was there with my kids and man, oof. Anyway, I just hope he's okay. And I hope that family comes back. Steve, what's going on, my man? Late with the Eagles talk, so my bad. But you don't think the Packers have problems that are going to get them that are bigger than the Eagles? The Packers don't have enough talent to beat the Eagles. Eagles' flaws won't get them this week. Moving forward could be another story. Steve, I've been hearing that week after week. Now, Steve, they do have some flaws. You're absolutely right. But I want to point out another flaw for the Philadelphia Eagles. All right? So, I've mentioned that the Eagles have played a schedule this year that their opponents are 20 games under 500. The Eagles have also not been tested defensively by teams. Going into this game, the Eagles have faced one top 10 defense all season long and two top 10 and one top 5. So out of the 17 teams the Eagles have faced, they only faced 3 defenses that have been in the top 5 or top 10. Now, conversely, the Packers have faced 5 top 10 and 3 top 5. So, okay, I get you, but 14-3, right? 11-6. Okay. I'm not saying that the Packers don't have flaws. I'm totally not. They're down a viable weapon, and I'm not saying that they could not win. I honestly believe the Eagles are a better team. But what I'm trying to say is, and you just backed it up yourself, the Philadelphia Eagles are not a perfect team, and it's too late now to do anything about that. It's too late to fix that. Now it's about trying to mask it like we've been doing all year. And you're going to say, let's kick it down the road. Let's kick the can down the road. So let's kick the can down the road to the divisional round. Let's kick it down to the conference championship. Let's kick it down to the Super Bowl. I get what you're saying, Steve. And you're right. The competition this week, the Packers, one of the bottom 3 teams of the playoffs. I'll give you that. I say that the Eagles, I've never said that the Packers had less talent than the Eagles or more talented. Those words didn't come out of my mouth. Eagles most definitely have more talent than the Packers. But there's some major flaws with the Philadelphia Eagles that are not going to be able to be masked much longer. The slow starts, averaging 12 points in first half of action. The fact that your quarterback does not throw the football to the middle of the field. Somebody's going to find a way to exploit that soon enough. The fact that the blueprint is out on how to beat the Eagles, right? The Commanders kind of exposed it. 8 in the box. Cover 0. Let Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm. I guarantee you're going to get a heavy dose of that. They're going to do everything in their power to take Saquon out of the game. Now, whether or not Jalen Hurts can respond to that, the Eagles haven't given Jalen Hurts the opportunity to be the difference maker through the air since week 4, Steve. That's not me propagandizing it. This is just reality. We want to pat Jalen Hurts on the back and say, great job for not turning the ball over for the last 3 quarters of the season. That's because they've taken away any opportunity for him to do that because they get rid of the high-pressure passes. That's your elite quarterback not allowed to throw the ball to the middle of the field. 48 times he's thrown to the middle of the field in almost 400 pass attempts. That's not me propagandizing it like a radical left homer. I am telling you the truth, the news, the stats. They won't let their quarterback beat you. The Packers are going to make Jalen Hurts beat them. And he probably might. All right, again, you're right. They have more talent. But I'm saying I could definitely see the Eagles losing this game. The Eagles are not, and let me wake you up on this one, Steve. The Eagles are not an elite football team. They are not one of the top 3 teams in this league. They are so not that. And you're going to wait and see that. There's no way they're winning a Super Bowl, in my opinion. I can have that opinion. I can see what I see, and I can translate it the way I want to translate it. You're right, though, Steve. The Packers are not as talented as the Eagles, 100%. And they probably will win, but I would not be surprised if they lose. Absolutely. You're trying to wish away the Eagles' problems by saying that the Packers' problems are better or worse. That's what homers do. I'm not calling you a homer, Steve. But that's what they do. They don't address the problems with the team. They want to address the problems with the other team first. What did I hear all summer? What did I hear all friggin' summer from the Phillies faithful? Yeah, well, we're struggling, but so are the Dodgers. So are the Yankees. So are the Mets. Who cares? Let's internalize first. That's all I'm saying. If the Eagles get in a shootout, they will lose because of Hurts can't score fast enough to keep up. But this week, I'm feeling like they will be okay. I'm going to focus on this week at a time before losing my mind over trying to read football crystal ball into future weeks. Again, spoken like a true. Why can't they just admit to it? Why can't they? Steve, you're not. I never paid you for a homer, man. Wow. Wow. It's an enlightening conversation tonight, Steve. That's his way of saying, yes, I know there's problems, but I'm not going to sit up there and I'm not going to upset the apple cart and I'm not going to piss off Eagles Nation by saying that, I don't think they're good. Because that's deep down in every homer. It's getting out of control. But deep down in every Eagle fan, let's call it Eagle fans. I'll stop labeling them. Deep down in every Eagles fans, there's speculation or there's concern, right? Now, maybe I don't have that part. Maybe all mine's up at the surface. And maybe I serve an agenda too. Now, here's the thing. I like to think that I give praise as much as I give criticism. I like to think that. I was certainly amazed at what Saquon Barkley did this year, and I wish he would have gotten the record. I really do. But I'm not taking it 1 week at a time because I've done that for the last 17 weeks, right? And that's where I've concocted all this from the last 17 weeks of action. And now maybe they completely amaze me And they come off to a hot start. They score 14 first quarter points, 17 to 21 first half points, and they coast to victory. That would be great. That would be completely off character of what they've done all season long. And I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying they haven't. That's all. It's how you analyze stuff. You take what the data you have and you project. It's not foolproof. I'll give you that. But it's worked ever since week 1. And again, let me remind everybody out there, so you don't think, again, I am making things up. This was Jalen Hurts' line in week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. He was 20 for 34, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble loss. Now, I'm not showing you this to say, oh, this is what he did against the Packers. That's not what I'm showing you this for. Week 1 happened a million years ago. These are 2 different teams. But what I'm showing you is why the Eagles changed their offensive philosophy and during the bye, because of the friggin' turnovers, right? I mean, Hurts threw 2 interceptions, lost 1 fumble, had another fumble that was recovered by somebody on the offense. And I think Kyle said there was 2 other plays that they almost gave the ball away. And again, I'm not saying this is indicative against the Packers. His numbers against, or their performance against the Packers in week 1 is irrelevant. But this was Jalen Hurts before their offensive renaissance. They changed the style. They changed their philosophy. They closed up Kellen Moore's playbook, and they opened up Moriarty's playbook, the combination Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni playbook. And that's what has led to this stat. Again, man, I'm just saying numbers, has led to this stat. Jalen Hurts attempted 361 passes in 2024. 48 of them were to the middle of the field. What the hell? 48, almost 400 passes attempted by this man in less than 15 games? He missed the last 2? And only 48 of them were sent to the middle of the field? That's not by accident. That's by design. They don't trust him to throw the ball to the middle of the field. I'm not making this up. This is the reality of it. Nobody wants to admit it, just like you don't want to admit that there's a problem between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. God save the king. All right? Just admit to it. I'm not making it up. I'm not saying that they can't win. I'm just saying that, worrying about the problem until next week has been what they've been doing all season. And nothing's changed. If a homer is feeling pumped for playoff football and enjoying the now and enjoying sports, then hey, I'm a homer. No, Steve, you know what a homer is. Come on. You know what a homer is. And I don't put you in that category. I don't. What happened to being able to enjoy a 14-win season instead of acting like they were a Cowboys this season? Okay, Steve, you're 100% right. But let me tell you something. Let me ask you this, Steve, and please, if you're still out there, Steve, I want to hear back from you. If they don't win the Super Bowl, what makes them different from the Cowboys? If they don't win the Super Bowl, what makes them different from the Cowboys? Matter of fact, the Cowboys have a better standing in the offseason. They have a higher draft pick. So if they don't win the Super Bowl, what makes the Eagles different from the Cowboys? What makes the Eagles different between any other team in the league except the Super Bowl champion? And that's another problem that we have in this town. Is championships don't seem to mean anything anymore. What makes them different from the Cowboys if they don't win the Super Bowl? I'd like to know. 10-3. Good job, Joe. 10-3 going into half. Penn State up by a touchdown. Good stuff. Flyers have scored 2. Now, don't get me wrong. When the losses come, I'll be the first to line of place the blame where it needs to be. I enjoy pointing the finger, but only 3 times this season I had to point a finger at who to blame. It doesn't make them any different than the Browns if they don't. That's what I just said. Absolutely. It doesn't make them any different than anybody if they don't win a Super Bowl, because that's what it's about ultimately, right? At the end of the day, that's what everybody wants. But now the real homers out there will try to talk that away by saying, well, there's only one team that can win. And, making the playoffs X amount of times is good enough, And I don't hear you doing that, Steve. So, again, I don't think listen, there's a homer. There's a slobbering homer, and then there's the radical left homer. There's certain degrees of homerism, Steve. I'll put you at the minimal level, the homer level. That's okay. I'll accept that. Do I have that here? Yes, I do. Here you go. Nick Sirianni. Now, this is not right because he won against the Giants. So his regular season record is 48-20. His regular season record is 48-20. Look at his postseason record. When everybody brings up he's the most winningest head coach in the last, or actively currently in the NFL, everybody brings that up, but they stop short of talking about his postseason record. Why is that? Is 48-20 not good enough? I mean, is 2-3 too hard to justify? When you talk about being an elite head coach, can you not justify a 2-3 postseason record? Again, I'm not making this up. This is his numbers. That's his quarterback's numbers too. Jalen Hurts is 2-3 in the postseason as well. Okay. So again, 48-20 in the regular season. I get you. That's great. That's great on the resume. It's going to get him another job. But what does that trophy look like? What does the 48-20 regular season trophy look like? And could I see it? Do we have a parade for that? Is there a parade for Nick Sirianni's 48-20 regular season record? No, there's not. There's only a parade for the postseason. And currently Nick Sirianni is 2-3 and 0-1 in the Super Bowl. So do you see my point, folks? There's two sides to every coin. But in this town, we have a tendency to look at just one side of it. I always said second place is the first loser. Absolutely, Steve. I agree with you 100%. Good conversation, Steve. Now let me get him and punch in the face like that guy did to that family. Let's take it completely out of control. All right, let's get back to what was I transitioning into? Hockey. Until Steve hijacked the show. Hockey. Flyers 3-1 right now, by the way. 10 minutes or so left in the game. I got to hurry up because I got to get off the air before this game's over. Because Sal will be right behind you for the post game. Clear the ice. By the way, Steve, if you're out there, Sal, talk to me. If you want to give me a holler, give me a holler. I'm interested to hear what you got to say. Flyers. Now, I know a lot of people are frustrated. I know a lot of people are frustrated about what's going on. The rebuild is starting to look like a rebuild. And unfortunately, I've had some time because over the last couple of nights, there's been a lot of venom sent over to me. And not at me, but, in reference to the Flyers and being frustrated about the season and about the rebuild. And I kind of sat back and I thought about this. Are the Flyers really involved in a rebuild? Because wouldn't the rebuild constitute getting rid of everything that they had and starting over? I mean, really, if you think about the bare bones of it. And would we not be better off if we did that? Would we not be better off if we traded just about everybody, send them out of here wholesale if we could, and start over again? There's been a lot of talk about the middling process the Flyers are in right now. They're kind of stuck in the middle. The development of these players has pretty much ceased. And we're getting the max out of Morgan Frost. We're getting the max out of Tyson Forrester, Owen Tippett, Bobby Brink, players like that. Well, what's the next step? Because I'm concerned that I don't know what that next step is. These players, I don't think are going to blossom any further. So would it not make better sense? Would it not be faster? Would it not be more expeditiously if we traded wholesale and pretty much started over again? And unfortunately tanked and fall to the bottom of the pond and get a number 1 or number 2 overall draft pick a couple times, a couple seasons, try to get this thing kicked in the ass, get rid of some of them contracts. So it's got me thinking, would we not be better off if we took that approach? And how much longer? And it's starting to crack a little bit. I can see it. I can feel it. I can hear it. The fans are getting a little frustrated and they're getting a little impatient. And I'm not saying that they're justified or they're not justified, but it's Philadelphia, for God's sakes. We don't have patience. And it's not, this rebuild is going to take, at this rate, the way the Flyers are strapped with cash, strapped with cap, picking mid-round on all the rounds of the draft. I don't care how many assets they have, which they do have a lot, but let's not forget that the assets they have belong to Stanley Cup contending teams who will be picking down by the bottom of the draft. So we'll get a 27th pick in the first round. Their own pick is going to be up around 14 or 15. How fast is that rebuild going to take when you're stuck in the middle? Like the song goes, stuck in the middle, that song. How fast, again, I'm speaking from a other side of the coin type scenario here. How long is this going to take? Because viewing it from the inside or outside looking in, it's going to take a minute. And do we, as a fan base, have patience for that? And when is the patience for Danny B and Keith Jones start to run out? At what season? Season 3, season 4, the end of this season? At what season does the patience start to run out for Danny B and Keith Jones? So, do the Flyers need to take another look at how they rebuild? And are they rebuilding by herding out the same players night after night after night, not making any changes, and doing the same thing over and over and over again? Is that a rebuild? Or is that something else? Something to chew on as we get deeper into this. But don't forget, tonight, it's 3-1 now, by the way. It's about 9 minutes to go. 3 minutes or 9 minutes to go, and the Flyers down 3-1. All right, real quick, I do got to move on. Let's get to the of the night segment because I'm running out of time. I could talk all night long with this thing. Do the of the night segment. This is the of the night segment. This is the part of the show where we talk about a Flyers prospect, a Phillies prospect, an MLB draft target, and NHL draft target. We spotlight a player from the Phillies or we spotlight a player from the Flyers. And tonight we're back on the Flyers. We've been broadening our horizons. We've talked some NHL draft this week. We talked some MLB draft this week. We've kind of casted our net out pretty wide as we're getting into the baseball season. I know if you look out my window, you wouldn't think baseball season, but it's getting there. But we're back on the Flyers for the of the night segment. We're going to look at a Flyers prospect and a really cool story. Here's your Flyer prospect of the night, Jacob Gauthier. Now, self-made man here. This is one of those stories that you love to hear about. He is a 6'3", 185-pound centerman, plays for the Phantoms. He is an undrafted free agent, self-made story. Gauthier continues to defy the odds. The UDFA has worked his way through the Flyer system and has become a solid option in the middle. And that means this. So he was undrafted free agent, signed by the Reading Royals, the Flyers' low-level ECHL AA minor league, if you will, team, to a PTO, which is a player tryout contract. It's really just to kind of see if you stick. Let me put his face back up there. I want you to really look at him. He worked his way from a PTO all the way up to had his contract purchased by the Phantoms. Stuck around for the Phantoms for about a half a season. Again, working on that PTO. Was just recently offered an actual two-way contract, an NHL contract by the Flyers. So he is now part of the Flyers system. He's part of the 30 men that they can use to bring up and down. His rights now are controlled by the Philadelphia Flyers. Self-made. Really a great story. If you want to, I would love to interview this guy because this is perseverance. This is chasing your dream. This is going for what you love to do and not letting anybody tell you otherwise. And he's got the frame, 6'3", a little light, 185. It's not really what I want my centers to be, but he's a chippy player, man. And he's self-made. He didn't come up the same way as some of the others did. He had to earn every inch of ice he cooked. And great news story as he is now under contract by the Flyers. So the Flyers could pull him up and then send him back down without any repercussions. And so far through 34 games this year for the Phantoms, 14 goals, 9 assists, 23 points, and he's a 0 for his plus minus. So keep an eye on him. Why not? Why not bring him up? I mean, we are desperate for some centermen. He's a physical guy, and he's going to play with some. He's going to play with a chip. So there you have it. The of the night segment, Jacob Gauthier. from the Philadelphia Flyers, a self-made man as he's worked his way up through all the levels of professional hockey to a pro deal. And congratulations to him, man, because that warms my heart, man. I love seeing stuff like that. So there you go. There's your of the night segment. And let's continue rolling through it with our new segment. Yes, we are doing a new segment tonight. Let's do it. All right. Philly's all-time roster. That is the new segment on the show. Over the course of the next X amount of nights, I will reveal position by position my all-time favorite Philly, or who I think is the all-time Philly at that position. I'm tired of being asked that question about who I think my favorite Philly roster or lineup is. So I said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to just do a segment, get it out of the way, do what we got to do with it. And I said, the heck with it. So how it's going to work is pretty basic. We're going to take first, second, shortstop, third, the outfield positions, 5 starting pitchers, 1 closer, just one closer, 1 relief pitcher, the closer, and a catcher. And we're going to basically take them night by night, whatever, and just have some fun with it, man. Again, I'm tired of answering the question, MattyB, what is your all-time Phillies lineup or your all-time Phillies team through history? So I said, the heck with it. Let's make it a segment on the show, and we'll have some fun with it along the way. And we're going to start it tonight with the hardest position for me to come up with the all-time great on. First base. We're going to start with first base, and it's a logical place to begin. But lo and behold, to me, this was the hardest position for me to come up with because there's 2, in my opinion, that could earn first base honors all time for me in my life watching the Phillies play. And I was unsure which way to go with this. And then I said, the heck with it. I'm taking the easy way out. I'm going to go with both of them. So here you go. On the first segment or the first installment of the all-time Phillies roster of the night or segment, my all-time favorite Phillies first baseman, 2 of them. I couldn't choose one. I'm sorry. I'm going with Pete Rose and Ryan Howard. We'll call Pete Rose as my guy off the bench on my all-time roster. I could not discern one from the other. I'm sorry. To me, both of them meant so much to the organization when they played here. They were both pivotal members of championship teams. They were both spark plug members of teams. They were both leaders of teams. And I could not, and I would not pick one over the other. It's the hardest position, if you think about it, on the Phillies to say there's a clear number 1 person. So I said, the heck with it. I'm taking the easy way out. I'm going to go with both of them. So Rose, who played here from 79 to 83, God rest his soul, 745 games, had a career 291 batting average with the Phillies, 826 hits, 255 RBIs, 8 home runs, and an OPS of 726. Obviously, you know, the face of the 80s, of the 80 championship team, one of the faces. Without him, we don't win the World Series in 80. Without him, we don't get back to the World Series in 83. Without him, we don't do a lot of things. I honestly believe without him, I don't think Mike Schmidt becomes Mike Schmidt. I think what he was to Mike Schmidt off the field was just about as important to Mike Schmidt's career as anything else. So Pete Rose, I know he was only here for 4 seasons, 79 or 5, but in those 5 seasons, or was this 4, 79, 80, 81, 82, 5, those 5, very, very key to the Phillies' success. And why, you know, the big piece. I mean, of course, I'm going to go with Ryan Howard, probably the most dominant power hitter of his era, 2004 to 2016. 1,572 games, a career 258 batting average for the Phillies, 1,475 hits, almost 1,200 RBIs, 382 homers, and 859 OPS. What is there to say about Ryan Howard? We do not win any of those division championships. We don't win the 08 World Series. We don't do any of that without number 6 in the lineup. And it's a shame both these individuals have been snubbed from the Baseball Hall of Fame. Pete Rose, for the obvious reasons, you know, I'm not going to get into all that, but Ryan Howard as well, he's off the ballot right now. He's already spent his minimum amount of time that he's supposed to be on the ballot. did not receive enough votes to stay on the ballot. So he could be voted in a lot like Dick Allen was, but it's a shame that he is being snubbed like this. Ryan Howard, in my mind, a true Hall of Famer, especially at that position, but getting the snub from baseball. But there you have it. I could not get to one, so I took two. Here are my all-time Phillies first basemen. I'm sorry. I tried, but I could not pick one. So I went with two. Pete Rose and Ryan Howard are my all-time Phillies first baseman. I had fun with that. Joe says for first base, for me, it's Pete Rose and John Kruk. Oh, see, I don't know. Kruk was a solid contributor, but I mean, for 1 year of what, did he really? I get what he was in sort of pop culture, but I mean, I don't know, Joe. There's no way John Kruk is ahead of Ryan Howard, and I don't know, Joe. Each his own, though, man. I get you, brother, but I'm going to go with Ryan Howard and Pete Rose as my all-time Phillies first base men. You're going to love who I selected as catcher, Joe, when we get to catcher. You're going to love that. But and no, it's not Darren Dalton. It's not. I'll give you a hint. It's not Darren Dalton. But there you have it. Our new segment of the night, the Phillies all-time roster. And we'll go through it position by position until we're done. All right, let's get to my final segment of the night. My favorite time of the night. Hit it.
Looks a little something like that. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad. What? Looks a little something like that. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad.
All right, for those of you that are new to the program, this is the MattyB card review segment. This is where I take one of the cards from my very vast sports card collection. We have some fun with it. We talk about it, talk about some value the card might have financially, some nostalgic value, just have some fun talking about the player. It's spread out over all four major sports, and I just love doing it. I've been an avid sports card collector all my life, so I turned it into a segment on my show, and I just recently put all my cards and organize them. So let's get going with tonight's card. We're back in baseball. Last night we were in hockey, but we're back in baseball. The iconic 87 Topps collection, which again is featured quite heavily in my collection. Let's go to it. It is the 87 Topps Fred Lynn. Yes, the very underappreciated Fred Lynn. Of course, best days of his career are probably spent with the Red Sox in the 70s. Went to the Orioles, as he's depicted here, kind of earned some infamy in Baltimore by saying to the media, this is the team with the silly duck on the hat, made a comment about the cartoon Oriole that was the logo, which I think is iconic. And hell, I love that. I'll wear a Baltimore Orioles hat because of that duck. But very underappreciated Fred Lynn. He is not a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame. He made his MLB debut in 74 with the Red Sox, probably had the best part of his career in Boston from 74 to 80. Last appeared in 1990 with the Padres, 9-time All-Star. He was the AL MVP in 75, the AL Rookie of the Year in 75. He was also the ALCS MVP in 82, 4-time Gold Glove Award winner. He was the AL batting champ in 79, and he is a member of the Boston Red Sox Hall of Fame, as well as the USC Hall of Fame, but not Pro Baseball's Hall of Fame. So I found that very interesting that Fred Lynn was not a member of Cooperstown, but very misunderstood Fred Lynn. I guess his career really didn't have much staying power after the 70s. I mean, he had some success early in the 80s, but by this part of his career, 87, it was pretty much winding down for him. But still, that's a pretty stout resume. I would think he would get into the Hall of Fame. But there you go. Fred Lynn is my card of the night, and here it is in its actual physical form. I have it right here. This is a pretty clean looking card. Centering is pretty good. The edges are sharp, and the centering is really mystical because, as you know, the 87 Topps had centering problems and cutting problems all over the place. But this is one of the good ones, and I found this card on 2 databases in PSA 8 form. Now, this is not graded. None of my cards are, but as a PSA 8, this card was $10. Now, I think I got at least a PSA 8 here. It's listed currently on eBay for $10, and I'll see if I can sell it. But there you go. The 1987 Fred Lynn Topps, my card of the night. And that's going to take us to the end of the show, which is great because the Flyers game is wrapping up. Flyers are not winning, and looks like they're not going to win. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks for the great conversation, Steve. I appreciate it, man. It's all fun and games, so somebody loses an eye, but we had fun with it tonight. I want to thank you guys for a great day on the network. Busy night. Please stay where you're at because Sal will be right behind me with the Flyers post-game show, Clear the Ice. And I will be back, and I'll see you again on Saturday. I got you Flyers post-game, Flyers Ducks. And then Sal will come on Sunday with the Eagles post-game. So this is the final word of the week. But we'll be back next Sunday or Sunday night, hopefully talking about a Birds win. That's what I want. But we'll see. Until then, you guys have a great rest of your night and an even better tomorrow.